If you are a mom and you have borderline personality disorder, I want to share with you 3 tips from my own personal perspective on some things I feel like you shouldn't be doing, and one thing I feel like you should be doing more as a mom trying to parent your child, but also trying to manage your life with borderline personality disorder. Those 3 tips are coming to you next. Well, hey, my moms with BPD. First off, I just wanted to offer you a bit of encouragement and remind you that God created you to be your child's mom for a reason. So when things get really tough with your borderline, like you know they will, just never lose sight that your child is your child for a reason and you are their mom for a reason and your child needs you. And I also wanted to just say that remember that us moms, we are designed to be that super nurturing source of affection and love in our child's life. We are to hug on them and to love on them as much as possible. But also never forget that you should be disciplining your child accordingly. So when things get tough for you and your borderline, never lose sight that you are your child's mom for a reason. So before I get into my tips for you, I did think it would be a good idea to give you guys a little bit of background knowledge / information on me as a mom so you know where I'm coming from. So I have a 17-year-old son, and it's insane how fast he has grown up. He turned 17 about 3.5 weeks ago, but I guess it's all relevant. Us moms, every year our child gets older, we're like, oh, they're growing up so fast. Where's the time going? And, so it's definitely all relevant. But he's 17 years old, and most of his life I did not know that I had borderline. When he was first born, I actually had the bipolar diagnosis. So those first couple of years of his life, I was really struggling with my mental well-being and just knew that I had bipolar, and I also thought maybe I had a little postpartum depression, but I never really had the depression element of it. So I just struggled with my mental health consistently when he was a little boy, and I always felt like there was something off with me. I felt empty. Life was chaotic for me. Relationships were just so full of stress all the time. And looking back now, I've had the borderline diagnosis about 4 years now, and I can clearly see how a lot of my symptoms back then were more of the borderline than they were of the bipolar. I do believe that I've had a comorbidity between bipolar and borderline, and as I've gotten older, I gravitate more to the personality disorder than the bipolar. But again, my son is 17 years old, and he knows that I have borderline, and he understands what it is, and I have talked with him about it. But again, most of his life, I didn't know what was going on with me, so I'm happy to have some answers just now, and that's kind of what I've been dealing with. So if you do have actually a teenager that can understand what you're going through with your mental health, I would recommend talking to them about it, but I would also be mindful of their maturity level and their own mental well-being. You don't want to overload your child with information on mom's mental health condition. It really depends on how mature they are and if they can handle it. You don't want to be telling your 5-year-old or even your 10-year-old that you have a mental health condition, because they are not going to comprehend it at all. They are just going to think that mom is sick, and they're going to feel really sad for you. So just be mindful of your teen's emotional capacity to be able to understand what is going on with you. So that's some information on me as a mom. And so what I'm going to share with you in this video, again, just 3 tips. These are things that I have learned throughout the years of being a mom, some things that I just didn't do right, and a thing that I am trying to do better at. And I'm just going to get into them. Now, tip number 1 is just don't be so selfish and self-absorbed. This is a really hard one for us borderlines because life is all about us. I mean, I'm going to speak for myself here because I don't want to judge you, but I know for me, I tend to get super self-absorbed and very much into everything that's going on with me, Joelle, all the time, where I tend to lose sight of what's going on with my son or other people in my life, right? And again, I've gotten so much better at this, but it has been a struggle for me where I just want to talk about and think about everything, what's going on and what's wrong with me in my life all the time. But you just don't want to get into a habit, Mom, of just being selfish and not thinking about what other people need from you. Stop, just thinking about, your mental health condition all the time. And I'm not minimizing it, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be working on it and being mindful of what's going on, but also just try to remember, and more so, try to strike a balance of, taking care of yourself and understanding what you're going through it, but also investing in your child, because again, your child needs you, like I said earlier. So just try to get outside yourself. Life is not all about you. One thing I want to say here is you don't want to make your borderline, or don't use your borderline as an excuse for poor behavior, okay? I've got borderline. I don't know what you go through, but it's a lot trying to manage and navigate my life every day. So I do understand somewhat of what you're going through. But again, you just can't be self-absorbed all the time. Just try not to be. So that's my tip number 1. And my tip number 2, this actually kind of coincides with tip number 1. This one, plain and simple, your child is not your therapist. This is another hard one for us with borderlines because when we've gotten into a fight, argument with someone, our spouse, our mother, father, sibling, coworker, neighbor, friend, road rage. Oh, well, road rage is a little bit different. I wouldn't go to a therapist for that. But when we've had an argument and something has gone wrong, we tend to want to tell everyone what's going on. And I don't know about you, but a lot of times I'm just looking for someone to give me an answer and tell me what to do to make it right. So we can get into the habit of sharing all this information with our child and telling them all about our problems. And then what we do without even knowing it is we get into a habit of where we're asking them for advice on how to fix it without even really saying it. They start to become stressed because we're talking to them about all of our problems, and then they feel like they have to help us and they feel so sad. And you don't want your kid to always walk around like, poor mom, she goes through so much all the time. If your child is not your therapist, please try not to be talking about all your problems to them all the time. Of course, if you're struggling with something, you don't want to walk around like everything is so wonderful all the time. You definitely want to share with your child, regardless of how old they are. Look, mom is having a bad day, and I may not be able to, take you to get ice cream today. You also want to be real with your kids. You don't want to paint this image that everything is just wonderful all the time, because then your kid's going to be like delusional when they get older. But just communicate with them. So you want to be careful that you are not going to your child with all your problems before they come to you with their problems, because what can happen here is when your child does have something that they need to talk to you about, they may be a little bit hesitant on coming to you because they're going to be like, man, if I go to mom, she's probably going to minimize my problem and just talk about her problems. So you want to be super careful of the type of environment that you are creating with them when you are just constantly talking about your problems all the time. That's tip number 2. Now, tip number 3, this one actually comes from my heart, and it breaks my heart because I don't think a lot of moms are doing this. This one's quite simple, but it could be hard for people depending on your experience. Just tell your child you love them every day. And if you don't tell them every day, try to do it as much as possible. And this one can be a hard one because it depends on, how you give and receive love. And yeah, you can say, well, you don't know my kid. They're not affectionate. They get embarrassed and they're very standoffish. they don't like hugs and all that ooey gooey stuff. I'm not talking about all this. I understand, especially if they're a teenager, they're going to get embarrassed, but you are their mom and you should be telling them that you love them as often as possible. Because, we see what's going on in the world today. There's such an increase in childhood mental illness, and just, things are going so wrong for kids nowadays in the schools, and just what's going on in society. So they just need reassurance that someone does care and love them. So you are their mom, and you should be offering that reassurance to them on a daily basis. And I know, again, this could be hard for you, depending on how your relationship was with your mom. Like, if you didn't tell your mom you love them when you were younger, and they didn't tell you, it may be uncomfortable for you. For example, I never told my mom I loved her, and she actually never did tell me when I was younger. And so I was never really comfortable with that. And it was always hard for me to do. I mean, I tell her that now. She's almost 85 years old, but it can also be depending on your experience. But it is very important. I'm telling you, I can't stress this enough. It is very important for your child's emotional and mental well-being, mom, that you tell them that you love them and you care about them. You need to affirm them. They need that from you as their mom. And one thing I want to say here before I wrap this video up is try to remember what type of relationship you had with your mom. I'm not saying that you need to walk around with a checklist like, my mom did this, that I didn't like this, so I'm not going to do this, or my mom didn't do this and she should have. We're not here to bash your mom, but what you are here to do is to be mindful of the type of relationship you want to cultivate with your child. What type of teenager do you want them to turn out to be? Are you teaching them good character? Are you communicating the right things to them? And also, what you want to think about is, what type of relationship do you want to have with your child when they become a teenager, and then even more so when they become an adult? And so if you look back at your own relationship with your mom, if your mom is still around, or even think about if they are deceased or they're not in your life anymore, think about, what attributed to your own mental health conditions and things, patterns and behaviors that you don't want to pass on to your child or children. So think about what type of adult relationship you want to have with them. So with that said, you want to be careful that you are not being so selfish and self-absorbed, so that they can come to you and trust you and want to be around you when they get older, and that you're not cultivating that child, therapist relationship with them, that they don't feel like they can't come to you with their problems. You want to be sure that they feel safe with you. So when they have a problem as they're getting older and even into adulthood, they can come to you. And you also want to be telling them that you love them. So when they start going out there in the world and experiencing relationships, that they're able to maybe also give love back and receive it because you've been giving it to them. So these are just a couple of things to think about as you are trying to navigate and manage your life with borderline, and also trying to parent a child, because it's no joke. It's super tough to just live with borderline every day and then have these relationships, because it's a lot of things that happen to us with borderline happens in the context of relationship. And so our relationships are unstable, and having a relationship with our child can be just as unstable. So we have to be careful. Like, I joke about this to myself, but I'm glad that I had a boy, and I have one biological boy, because I struggled with self-image so much, and it's like, man, if I had this girl that was half as beautiful as I am, or like, look at this curly hair. It's very frizzy today, but I struggle with self-image so much, and I can't imagine. I probably would have had a lot of unstable, things going on with her. I don't know. I'm just saying that, us moms, we just struggle with so much as borderline. So we really have to work hard with that all the time, every day. I think I made my hair a lot of frizz going on. But I hope that these tips were helpful to you moms out there. I'd love to hear in the comments below if any tips stood out to you, if one is harder than the other, and maybe you have some tips that you can share with me and my 19 subscribers. If you like this video, I would love a thumbs up. I would love for you to subscribe. If you know somebody that can benefit from it, share it. And if there are more videos, mom videos or whatever videos. I have so much experience with misdiagnosed and undiagnosed borderline that I have a lot of things that I can share with you guys. If there's another video that you would love for me to do, I'd love to hear about that in the comments below. I just want to challenge you today, moms. Just tell your kid you love them. They may be like, what's going on? Is this new mom? Whatever the case may be. But get outside your comfort zone. It is not going to kill you to tell your child you love them. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a thing or two. Take care of yourself and remember, us borderlines are unstable, but we are able to do so much. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one.